Hello everyone. A very good morning to all of you. I am Dr. Supriti Jana. I welcome you once again to Jharkhand Rai University, and I also welcome you all to my course on applied chemistry in Roots 2020. Today we are going to discuss mainly what about atoms and the atomic structure. Before going to start, at first you have to know why chemistry is very important in mining engineering. We know that in mining engineering, the chemicals and reagents play a vital role for the mineral extraction. After mineral extraction means these are ores, then we have to extract them to the concentrated metal from the ores, and this process is called metallurgy. And we must know about the toxic chemicals present in mines, all kinds of mines like cyanide and other poisonous gases. And the extraction process is very much important, as the we know that for the sustainable development we have to adapt some strategies so that we can decrease the environmental pollution, as we know that the in mining process can cause various environmental issues. I am not going to discuss all the environmental issues in today's lecture. This will be discussed in the fourth lecture of Roots 2020. Let us first discuss about what is an atom. So, here from this we can see that the atom is the smallest unit of an element. We can also say that atoms are the building blocks of any element. So, atoms are the smallest part, and it consists of a central nucleus. This is called the nucleus part, and it is surrounded more by one or more electrons. In case of hydrogen, there is only one electron, but after that, hydrogen, there are some other elements, more than 110 elements, and they are having more than one electrons. Now, what is the nucleus part? Nucleus means that is the central part of the atom. In the last slide, we have already seen that the central part is the nucleus and the electrons surrounded by its different orbits. And the central part, here you can see, these consist of two types of particles. The first one is the positively charged, these are called the protons, and the neutral, the orange balls, this indicates the neutrons. So these contains most of an atom's mass. Now, what is proton? From the nucleus part, proton is already been introduced, and this is the positively charged particle, and it is shown in the yellow color. So, yellow color particles are, in our case, it is the positively charged particles, and these are the proton and found within an atomic nucleus. So, their position is at the nucleus only, and the electrons are at the outside nucleus. Then we have to know ki what is a neutron. Neutron, this is the orange colored ball in our case, and these are the uncharged particle, and these are found within an atomic nucleus. So, in the atomic nucleus part, we are having the neutron and also the proton. So, combinedly, these form the nucleus of an atom. So, there is another particle left, that is the electron. Now, what is electron? Electrons are the negatively charged particle and located in cells that surrounded an atom's nucleus. So, from this up to this, we are now able to understand that the nucleus part contains proton and neutron, and outside nucleus there are electrons. In case of hydrogen, there is only one electron, and in case of other elements other than hydrogen, there are more than one electrons. Now, this concept is given by Rutherford in 1910 to 1913. There are various concepts available before Rutherford, but these are not well accepted. Only Rutherford's atomic model is well accepted, as this is based on a very famous experiment that is called the gold foil experiment, and I am going to discuss in the next slide. Before that, we must know about what is the Rutherford atomic model. Before, as we know that the atoms are stable, that means there are positively charged, as we have already seen that there are positively charged and also negatively charged particle in atom, but atoms are stable, that indicates the number of positively charged particle and the number of negatively charged particle. Positively charged particle means the proton part and the negatively charged particle means the electron part. So they must be in the similar count, means number of protons is equal with the number of electrons. That's why the number of proton, the positively charged and the negatively charged particle number same, that means the atom is neutral. In case of neutral atom, in case of stable atom, number of protons and number of electron must be same. And in case of Rutherford atomic model, the first correct approach to atomic structure was made only when it was established that atom possesses a small nucleus. The corresponding atom model, first forwarded by Lord Rutherford in 1910 to 1913, and is called the nuclear model of the atom. In spite of several extension and modification, the basic idea of a nuclear atom is still maintained. Means Rutherford nuclear model is the well accepted model, and the experiment was carried out with the helium nuclei, that is for the alpha particle, and the gold foil was taken, and that's why this famous experiment is known as the gold foil experiment. Here I am going to show you this picture. From this picture you can see in Rutherford laboratory the experiments were being carried out on the scattering of alpha particle by thin metal foil. This is the thin metal foil. Here gold metal foil is taken, and this one is the screen. Here you can see the screen that can to detect the scattered of alpha particles, and the alpha particles have a mass of 4 times that of hydrogen atom and carry 2 units of positive charge. The massive energetic alpha particles from the radioactive source was this is the radioactive source. Here you can see the hole, and there is also a gap between in the screen, so that the alpha particle can pass through this channel, and the position of the particle after passing the foil was ascertained by the flash produced on a zinc sulfide screen. This screen can be of the zinc sulfide screen. And the young scholar that Marsden of Rutherford was asked to see if any alpha particle could be scattered through a large angle. Actually, most of the alpha particle pass through any appreciable deviation, but all of sudden one or two particles of thousand run after hitting the gold foil. And according to Rutherford, the wide angle scattering of alpha particle could not occur by the additive effect of number of small scattering. So Rutherford expected to pass through this screen to the foil, but what happened in actual case, most of the most of the rays pass through this, and few of the particle revert back to the screen. This is reflected back, that indicates that the positively charged, here we can see this is the positively charged alpha particle, and most of the particle pass through this. That means most of the space in an atom is void space, and there are few part where the positively charged particles are there. That's why this is scattered back. Here I am going to show you an animated video. Watch this animated video very carefully so that you can understand the fact very easily.
The plum pudding model of an atom was one of the most widely accepted models all over the world for understanding the structure of the atom. However, several experiments performed by scientists to study the atomic structure showed astonishingly different results. They were contradicting the plum pudding model. This led many scientists all over the globe to reconsider the structure of an atom and study it again. Around the year 1911, a British physicist, Ernst Rutherford, carried out the famous gold foil experiment. He did this to understand the structure of an atom. The experiment was carried out by Rutherford along with Hans Geiger and Ernest Marsden. The experiment he performed was a breakthrough in the field of chemistry, which helped him understand the structure of an atom in a more accurate manner. This is how the setup of his experiment looked like. As we can see here, he used a source of alpha particles locked in a lead container with a very small slit. This ensured that the alpha particles only came out through a small opening and travelled in a straight line. But why did he select alpha particles in the first place? Well, the alpha particles were having high energy and were heavier as well. So if we say the atom is like a pudding of positively charged particles with electrons embedded in it, then the particles will pass straight through it. This is obvious because the heavier particles will pierce through the lighter pudding structure of the atom and pass through it. This is what Rutherford thought. For this reason, their greater mass and energy compared to the protons made him choose alpha particles for the experiment. Next, he used a very thin gold foil on which the alpha particles would bombard. Why did he choose a gold foil? Well, a really thin gold foil was estimated to contain approximately 1000 atoms. Lesser the atoms, more convenient the experiment would be. Lastly, are we able to locate this circular band with a gap here? What could this be? Well, this is the screen. A fluorescent screen that would help us detect the radiation. That means the screen will glow or emit fluorescent light whenever alpha particles will hit it. So this is how the track of alpha particles can be traced. Now we're all set to understand how the experiment worked. The alpha particles were emitted from the element present in this box. These directly hit the gold foil. Now what should happen ideally? As we know, the Thomson's model suggested that an atom is a sphere of positive charge with negative electrons embedded inside it. That means it is expected that the alpha particles will pass right through the atoms and hit the detector straight. And why so? Because the mass of alpha particles is heavier than the mass of positive charges. That means they should directly hit the atom and move ahead through it. only a very small deviation would probably be acceptable in this case. But is this what he observed? Not really. He was astonished to get unexpected results. What results did he get? He found that most of the fast-moving alpha particles passed straight through the foil and hit the detector. However, some particles got deflected by small angles. And lastly, to his astonishment, few alpha particles also rebounded. Now, how can this be possible? These three observations made Rutherford think that the plum pudding model is not really correct. Based on the conclusions he had, he put forward the new hypothesis explaining the structure of atoms.
So you can see that the plum pudding model is not correct. Now we have to know what the actual model should be. For this, you have to watch this video.
The plum pudding model of an atom was one of the most widely accepted. Rutherford's gold foil experiment gave him interesting results. What results did he get, by the way? Let me recall them for you. He found that most of the fast-moving alpha particles passed straight through the foil and hit the detector. However, some particles got deflected by small angles. And lastly, to his astonishment, few alpha particles also rebounded. Now, how can this be possible? These three observations made Rutherford think that the plum pudding model is not really correct. Let us take a simplified example to understand the inferences first. Let us imagine that we have a ball made up of cotton. The cotton in the ball is very sparsely distributed and has an extremely tiny circle or sphere located at the center. This sphere is quite hard and dense. So hard that it can even resist a bullet shot against it. Now, what will happen if you shoot many bullets across this cotton ball? Most of them will travel straight through the cotton surface. What will happen if a bullet hits the edge of the central heavy mass? In this case, the bullet will slightly change their path and get deviated. So looking at the size of the central mass, it's obvious that only some of the bullets will get deviated. Lastly, what happens when a bullet hits the center directly? Needless to say, it will bounce back, because we know that the central dense mass is too hard for the bullet to pass through. So very few bullets will bounce back. This is analogous to what Rutherford had inferred about the atomic structure. His first conclusion was that most of the space inside an atom is empty. This is because most of the alpha particles could easily pass through the atoms and hit the detector straight. Now, if most of the space is empty inside an atom, then where is the positive charge located? Well, that's the second conclusion. The positive charge is compactly packed in a tiny entity. This occupies an extremely small space inside the atom. Now, why did he think so? Let's go back to our cotton ball and bullet example. Can you recall the second and the third case? Yes, the bullets get deviated on hitting the tiny sphere of the edge and they will rebound when they hit the center. Same explanation holds true for this. A few alpha particles get deviated. That means there is a possibility that these hit the edge of the positive center. Yes, and one more possibility is that they get deviated because the positive center repels the alpha particles as they're also positively charged. Also, a very small number of alpha particles rebounded. That means there is a possibility that these alpha particles had directly hit the positive center. But since the number of these rebounding particles is too small, it explains that the volume occupied by the positive center is also very small. If the space occupied would have been big enough, then the number of alpha particles bouncing back would also be greater. So let's say there are gold particles in the foil. He found that most of the rays pass straight through the atoms. A few rays change their path and get deflected. Lastly, very few particles bounce back. These results compelled Rutherford to come up with a new nuclear model. Let's have a look at the hypothesis put forward by him. Firstly, there's the positively charged center in an atom called nucleus. Nearly all the mass of an atom resides in the nucleus. Secondly, the electrons revolve around the nucleus in circular paths. Thirdly, the size of the nucleus is very small compared to the size of an atom. However, theoretically, there were many flaws in the hypothesis. Let's have a look at the drawbacks in Rutherford's hypothesis in the next video. Also, we will have a look at the explanation of atomic structure by another scientist named Niels Bohr in the next video.
So, from these two animated videos, it is now clear that the central part of an atom consists of the neutron and the proton, and combinedly this set is called the nucleus part, and surrounding the nucleus there are some negatively charged particles. These are called the electrons. And but this Rutherford atomic model cannot explain the atomic spectra, and this was solved by his research scholar Niels Bohr. I am not going to discuss the theory of Niels Bohr and the Bohr atomic model in this today's lecture, but we will discuss in our core course during the first semester course after this foundation. So, if we want to summarize this, we can have that the protons are the positively charged particles, then neutrons are the neutral particles, and the position of proton and neutrons are at the central part. This is nucleus. And the electrons are negatively charged particles. Protons and neutrons are located in the nucleus. Electrons are found in orbitals surrounding the nucleus. So, this is the basic part of an atom. This is the simplest part. We have to remember that protons are positively charged, electrons are negatively charged, and the neutrons are the neutral part. Now we are going to discuss about the periodic table of elements. Actually, chemistry involves study of the elements. Now more than 100 in number. Actually, it is now 118, and their compounds which are being counting. These are beyond counting, and as in all other fields of science, in this case also, generalization of facts stands essential for a systematic study of the subject. Fortunately, the observed chemicals analogy of the elements initiated a sort of classification for them. It was observed that the properties of elements repeat themselves after a certain interval. Here we can see that except hydrogen, lithium, sodium, potassium, rubidium, cesium and francium, and this is called the group, and the horizontal part is called the period. So along the period group, the properties are almost same and similar. So from this we must know about the periodic table. Mendeleev based his periodic table on the periodic law that the physical and chemical properties of elements are periodic function of their atomic weight. But there are some problems with the atomic period. These are the periodic table. But in case of modern periodic table, these are actually in the with respect to the atomic number. Here there are various elements I am showing that these are different to each other with the number of electrons, protons and neutrons also, and their properties are also different. Their physical, both their physical and chemical properties are very different to each other. And in case of the periodic table, you can see the periods and the groups also. From the periodic table, if you can see, these are the inert gases. These are not actually inert. In some case we can have their reaction. So these are the noble gases. So we can say that the periodic table organizes the elements in a particular way, and there are great deal with the elements. And with the periodic table also, the chemists have not satisfied themselves merely with the study of available elements and their compounds. So their attempts to systematize the chemistry have always inspired them to predict missing elements, and which will fill the certain gaps in the generalization. So the elements discovery is always in the process, and we can see that the number of elements is also increasing, and today till date there are 118 known elements are there in the periodic table. So from the periodic table, if we want to generalize the part, then we can say if this is the formula, this is the elemental hydrogen, and here we can see from this the number 1 indicates the total number of protons, and the atomic number refers to the many protons of an atom of the element. So for hydrogen it has only one proton, and the atomic number is unique to that element. For protons the atomic number is 1, and for hydrogen the atomic number is 1, and the next element after hydrogen is helium. Here the number of protons is 2, so the atomic number is for helium is 2, then lithium it is for 3. So different periodic tables can include various bits of information. From the periodic table we can know about the atomic number. Here it is for hydrogen it is 1, then symbol for hydrogen the symbol is H, and atomic mass also. Atomic mass is not given here. Atomic mass is also 1 for hydrogen, and the number of valence electrons, the state of matter at room temperature. Here we can see that the state is gaseous for hydrogen, so hydrogen is in the gaseous form. Now the atomic number. What is the atomic number? Atomic number refers to how many protons an atom of that element has. So for hydrogen atomic number is 1, for helium atomic number 2, and for sodium atomic number is 11. And so that's why in this way the atomic number is given, but in the modern periodic table atomic number is written at the left bottom side, and the mass number is written at the top upside, and the no two elements have the same number of protons. So if the number of proton is different, then atomic number is also different and the element is also different. So we can identify, we can recognize, we can differentiate atoms with their atomic number. This is the unique number for any atom. Now atomic mass. What is the atomic mass? Atomic mass actually refers the weight of an atom, and it is derived by the adding of number of protons and number of neutrons. So in case of helium, if you see the atomic number is 2 for helium. Atomic number 2 for helium, so the number of protons is 2 for helium, and in case of helium the neutron number is also 2. That means the total number of protons and neutron is 4, and for helium atomic number is 2 but atomic mass is 4. Here from this picture you can see that in case of hydrogen number of proton is number of here this is the simplest proton, we can say proton, simplest hydrogen, this is deuterium, this is deuterium. here you can see here number of proton is only 1 for all these 3 cases, but here you can see there is no neutron. The neutron is denoted by the green hole, the green circle. So here 0 neutron, 1 neutron, 2 neutron. So here in three cases the atomic number is 1, but the mass number is different. Here the addition of proton and neutron is the mass number. So here the mass number is 1, here 2, here 3. So these are the isotopes. Both all the three are isotopes of hydrogen. Here in all the cases the number of proton is same, but as the number of neutron is different, that's why mass number is also different. Like similar ways you can see in case of helium, here these are isotopes. Number of proton in helium must be 2, here also 2, but here you can see mass number is 3, as the number of neutron is 1 here. Here mass number is 4, as the number of neutrons is 2 here. So with the addition of 2 plus 2, the mass number is 4 here. Here 2 plus 1, that is 3. With the similar way you can explain the number of protons and neutrons, and you can explain the isotopes. So while the most atoms have the same number of protons and neutrons, some don't. Some atoms have more or less neutrons than protons. These are called isotopes. Proton number is same, but due to presence of different neutron number, we can have the different isotopes. So atomic mass number with the decimal is the total number of the proton plus the average number of neutron. So this is the average mass. So from this today's lecture, we are now able to explain about the general structure of an atom, about the nucleus, proton, neutron, and also electrons, Bohr atomic model, and with the not Bohr atomic model, the Rutherford atomic model with the famous gold foil experiment, then the useful the use of the necessity of the periodic table, and after that various types of terms like atomic mass, atomic number, isotopes, and their use and their properties. And today up to this, in our next class we are going to explain about different types of hydrocarbons. So thank you for today's lecture, and thank you for your attention.